Since we're hearing about them so much on the news, let's take a moment or two to talk about anonymous sources. This is something I know a thing or two about after spending years as an investigative reporter. I got a lot of phone calls from sources who wanted to give me stories but would only do so under the assurance of anonymity. I've done a lot of great stories and won a lot of awards because of anonymous sources, but there's three things you should do. First, check the credibility of the source. Make certain they are who they say they are. Second, check the credibility of the information. This is when the reporting really starts. You have to make certain that what they're telling you is true. And finally, and this is just my rule, I never quoted an anonymous source. Now, it was easy for me because I'm on TV and I could hide their faces, I could disguise their voice, but the words had to come from their mouth. And here is the most important point. Anonymous sources are rarely pure. They all have an agenda. For instance, almost all investigative reporting on a candidate during a campaign comes from opposition research. When you hear from an anonymous source inside a company or inside a government, they're almost always disgruntled. They were either fired or somehow they want to enact change. I'm telling you this because I think all of those rules have been forgotten in the current media frenzy over Donald Trump. Anonymous sources have been placed on a media pedestal, held by many outlets as sacrosanct, irrefutable, even when put up against first-hand sources who are willing to go on the record. There have been some glaring examples. For instance, when the Washington Post had the headline that, according to an anonymous source, Donald Trump clumsily gave up classified information to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, quickly, highly decorated general and national security advisor H.R. McMaster, who was in the Oval Office for the meeting, set the record straight.
The story that came out tonight, as reported, is false.
But that wasn't good enough. The media narrative had already been set, built on the word of anonymous sources against the word of a three-star general who was at the meeting. Which brings us to this CNN video, which is a great example of how anonymous sources are held as holy. You see, CNN confirmed the Washington Post story with their own sources, and they had a panel to discuss it. Carl Higbie, a former Navy SEAL who was the only person on that panel to ever handle classified information, had the nerve to question the validity of the anonymous sources.
Two former officials knowledgeable of the situation confirmed to CNN the main points of the story. Two former officials. Tell you what, come out, name those people, then we'll have something to talk about.
One, we protect sources. Two, it's not just CNN, it's Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, CNN, ABC,
yeah, but who
NBC.
Who are the sources?
Carl.
Who are the sources? Oh, because they're hiding behind this anonymity.
Oh,
and that's what we're seeing.
Please, do not even start with me that you're just going to attack sources.
Okay, so
that
what
is
about,
ridiculous.
so are you saying McMaster's lying?
No. You're not calling him a liar. You're using the anonymous sources to call him a liar, even though we don't know who they are. CNN anchor Kate Baldwin is passionately defending those sources, even though she probably has no idea who they are. And listing off the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, NBC, ABC means nothing. It doesn't mean there's a whole lot of sources. They could all be using the same two sources, but we'll never know because they're anonymous. And one last thing. The president can legally share classified information anytime he wants. The sources can't. They're breaking the law. If they are exposed through investigation, they can go to jail. They'll be exposed, as will any agenda. Will Kate Baldwin and the rest of the media so passionately defend them then? I'm Larry Menti. See you again next week.
Do not attack the stellar reporters of CNN who have their sources.